If you don't bleed on your project, did you really do a project? Alright, in part one, we got all of our patterns made and we're to the point that we're ready to build our kit. If you've not seen that video yet, go ahead and go back and watch that before you watch this, because there is information in that video that I will not be explaining in each video. Let's make a homemade Targa kit. Yeah, it's not horrible. I can work with that. What's in the box? Well, it obviously ain't a Targa kit. We still got to build one of those. But to put this timeline in perspective, remember a month and a half, 2 months ago, I did a drop video on the death trap? That's what was being delivered. Bottom of the top. Big gap, a big spot here, little spots all the way around, so we're getting there. Yeah, let it cool. For the record, if this don't work, we'll cut some new metal and try to build it differently. That's the whole point of doing it on this truck and transferring it to the other truck. So this is where we stand at the moment. We've got overlap here because we don't expect this truck and the death trap to be exactly the same, but we can push that into place, weld it to the truck or the death trap. Slow process, we'll get there. Now our magnets down there are doing a pretty good job of holding our metal into place, so we might just go ahead and pull this off the edge of the truck. I think it'd help if you'd see it. So we might just go ahead and pull this off the edge of the truck like that, let the magnets hold it in place, and go ahead and weld this up all the way across. Alright, now we're not going all the way to the ends because the end of this kit may not fit the death trap perfectly, so some of this is going to have to be formed on the death trap. We'll let it cool down, and then we'll let it cool down, then we'll keep welding from the bottom side. Well, that was wrong. You see, because I left the front bow off the front of the truck, when I welded it up, I couldn't see that I was getting heat distortion due to the fact that, well, I'm impatient. So when it was all said and done, that bow got thrown in the scrap pile, and we went through the whole process, cut it out, clean it up, weld it together. Only this time, instead of using C-clamps, I got Joe to come over, hold it in place for me while I tacked it up, kept an eye on it to make sure that my heat distortion wasn't so bad, and I took my time. So we have a different front bow than what you just saw, but there's no point in showing you that whole process again. Let's move on to the back. Remember these braces? This is why we welded them in place. Without those braces, this would flop all over the place. But because the braces are on there, it holds its shape. I could set that down, trace it out, which I've obviously already done. And now we have a pattern for the back side of the Targa. Once this cools down, we'll weld one more right along in here. But after that, we're gonna hold off and we'll finish it up on the death trap, because there will be some differences between these two trucks. Yep, my welding is way better when I'm not doing it upside down. All right, so when we put the lip on it, we did big spots. Now that's the lip that the seal for the top is going to mount to, and the kit will sit basically like this, and then the roof section will sit up against this. Now the next section is this lip right here, which is what is going to be the bottom side of this lip will be the cab of the truck. So this lip will get welded to the cab of the truck. Now because of that, we've got to weld this one on the outside, and we're gonna have to weld it all the way down. So we're taking our time. We've got it this far so far. Here's where we're at. We'll keep going. So in the welding tips video, I showed you an ugly weld. What I didn't tell you was I did all that welding upside down. This is a much better job here. Alright, so this is where we stand at the moment. I accidentally left this part of the kit outside last night, so I'm probably gonna have to get Joe to sandblast it up, and then we'll take care of that. Now I want to point out that the ends of these are not welded in or cut off. Everything's a little bit too long, and that's intentional. When we go to put this kit on the death trap, there's gonna be little bitty minor differences in reference to the width and the curve of the roof line. So we want to make sure that we account for that. We'll finish this little bit up when we go to install the kit on the death trap. All right, so we got a piece of 16 gauge 1/2 inch square tubing, and we need it to make a curve. Matter of fact, we need it to match this piece of metal, which is not only curved this direction, but it's also curved this direction. So how do we do that? Well, we don't use a tubing bender because I ain't got one. I don't know if it's gonna work, but we gonna try it. I got a brake rotor out of a big truck. Ow. We've got 2 pieces of square tubing. We need one of them to lay in this channel right here. And then we need one that will lay in this channel right here. Now this one's a little different because it's not only curved in that direction, but it's also curved in that direction. So it's got to be 2 different curves. We're going to hold off on this one. Try to get that one first, see how it works. That's too far. to take a little bit out of that. That spot needs to be more. We need to take a little more out of that. Like here. What I'm doing here is I'm taking this and I'm putting it between, so I'm taking this and I'm putting it between the two and I'm curving it. But now I've gotten too much curve. So now I gotta take some of that, well, not there. Yeah, further down. Take some of that curve back out. Take some out. It's getting there. It's just going to be time consuming. Need to go with a sharper curve on the end and pull some of that curve back out. All right, here's where we stand with the rear bow. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Of course, once the bow itself gets put on the truck, then we're gonna have to tweak this and trim it and all that good stuff. Now the second one is the front bow, and the front bow has, like I say, two different curves. You got one going this way and one going this way. And I think it's going to be easier if we do this curve first, then we can come back and do this curve. Hopefully. Still got to do that, but here. Flip that around the right way. Have you ever done crown molding? Because this is a lot like that. You got to be able to think upside down and backwards and all that good stuff and then make an angle. Only in this case, a curve. Multiple curves in multiple directions. This might take me a minute. So here's our finished product. We've got the curves pretty well, except for right here, which has to go back a little bit right there. On the bottom side, what we're actually looking at is the top of this in reference to the top of this, because this will be mounted to the roof, which will be the roof line right here. This is the roof line, this top plate. So I'm not unhappy with that. It's gonna need cutting, it's gonna need tweaking, and of course we can do all that when we get the roof cut off the death trap. All right, we got our Targa kit as close to finished as it can be before the install. But don't forget, we plan to install this thing over the course of a weekend. So anything that we can do to the daily death trap that will help accommodate the time frame of an install over a weekend is beneficial. We can clean the truck out, we can strip the interior, we can get the overhead braces welded in. All of that are things that do not require cutting the roof off, because once that roof gets cut, we're in a position where it's got to be finished before the end of the weekend. I wonder how old that is. I'd hang it from the mirror if I had one. This is a T50 Torx bit. You know what? Looks like somebody had a permanently installed cell phone back in the early to mid 90s, which would explain that. I just never knew that was there because it was covered with a AAA sticker. Gotta go for now. So let me show you what I did here. Took those screws, taped them to this panel. That way they'll be there when I go to put this panel back on. I wrapped them up in some tape, taped them to the visor. Of course, that visor probably ain't going back on, but the screws are with the visor, so we're good. Then I took every single screw from the back of the truck, put them in a bucket, gonna put them with the panels. All right, boys and girls, this is why you never throw away a pattern until you're completely done with the project. So in the process of welding these support braces into the gold truck, I realized they stick down too far off the roof. This was too close for comfort. So I'm thinking before we weld these braces into the death trap, we need to cut them down a little bit, make them shorter. So I went and found the original patterns. We're gonna cut them down about 3/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, maybe a 1/2 inch. And then we'll transfer that back over to the metal and cut it out and start over. Now you'd be absolutely amazed how much of a difference that little 1/2 inch made.
That's what I said.
That's my happy face. We got our kit ready for install. We got the truck prepped for install. All we got to do on the day of the install to finish prepping is take out the door seals, but I couldn't take those off because we still have to drive that truck between now and the weekend that we're going to do our install on. So that's a pretty good feeling right there. The problem is we're going to have to wait for the install on part 3 of this video series. So in the meantime, why don't you take a moment and subscribe if you're not already, or maybe check out this video here.